Hello, my name is KarQ. Welcome to the Hot Takes series for this channel, which is Overwatch related. I actually have a separate Marvel Rivals channel where I do hot takes there, and I saw last week's comment. They're all just like, you know, I thought I clicked an Overwatch video. There's too much Marvel Rivals in this one, blah, 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 blah. I just want to say in the open that, like, yes, this is an Overwatch channel, but I think we're at a point where both games are at a pretty good spot where it'd be actually productive and good to have a decent conversation or discussion about it. Of course, we probably won't feature any that, like, you know, put way too much emphasis on like the core gameplay of Rivals and stuff relating to the actual characters and stuff, like, or that might be moved to the, you know, my other Marvel Rivals channel where I actually do hot takes there. But if it's a take that still makes sense for Overwatch, then we can still feature it here. So to start off, this will be the only one related to Rivals here, I promise, just opening it up. We're gonna start with this one. My take between Marvel Rivals and Overwatch. I don't mind both being talked together. I understand some takes are taken too far, which doesn't result in a healthy discussion, but like KarQ said, Marvel Rivals is the most hero shooter adjacent to Overwatch and is competing with it. This is a good thing for both games because it drives competition, which results in improvements. The fact players are making comparisons is like talking about both games. This is good for both games because it's like indirect marketing. Overwatch hasn't had this level of competition for a really long time, which does kind of result in game stagnation. If you really look through Overwatch 2's history, the game hasn't really gave out substantial updates that Season 15 and upcoming Season 16 will bring until Marvel Rivals launched. Now with Overwatch and their competitor Marvel Rivals coexisting, it's a win for us players because both will keep striving for improvements to keep up with each other. And I agree with this. Obviously, like, there's like the very like low-hanging fruit takes or the tribalistic takes that are so much like, yeah, Overwatch bad. Like this take said, I do think this is a very adjacent game, and I want to take things that Rivals is doing well and bring it to Overwatch, and things that Overwatch does well and take it to Rivals on the other channel, of course. So for this one specifically, I mean, not much more to add to it than other than you're right. Like, this level of competition has brought out specifically the expedition, I think that word is wrong, of hero bans. They have said that, you know, Rivals proved to them that it can work in a new format. We had hero bans in Overwatch like 6 years ago, I think, where Blizzard would pick 4 specific heroes for that week to be banned, whether that's like Orisa and, like, you know, Ana and Widow and Genji or whatever, and then the next week would be different. And then there would be some weeks where it's like a back-to-back week of the same hero being banned. People didn't like it because their feedback was like, well, if I want to play as one hero and like they're all permanently banned from ranked all week, and this was their first iteration, but everyone was saying like hero bans are fine, but it has to be put into the player's choice, and that's what they didn't do. They just pulled it all back, and, you know, that's where we're at now. But hero bans are coming to competitive Overwatch, I think next season or the season after, and leaving it to the player's choice does allow them to kind of like self-regulate their experience in a lot of ways, right? So if I had to predict, I'd probably argue that Sombra would not get banned right now, simply because her perks are kind of bad, unless she gets new perks next season. And I'd argue maybe Sojourn gets banned. Ana probably gets banned if they do 4 bans, maybe 3. And I'm trying to think for the tanks. Maybe, I don't even think it's like 1 ban from each category. I think it's just global stuff. So those 2 are like, might be the must bans for now. I can't think of any other crazy outliers other than those 2 at this certain point. What do you guys think? Last point about Rivals is that definitely, you know, kind of pushed that sort of product to be up the pipeline for them. But the one thing I want to point out is like Stadium and all the other stuff they've been cooking is not a result of Marvel Rivals. Like, if you guys know anything about game development or any big corporation, we're talking like AAA corporation, Blizzard Entertainment, hundreds of employees. It is not that... Like, if the game came out and blew up in December, it's not like they can cook something up in like 2-3 months of this stature. Like, Stadium was a result of them. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure Stadium's been in development for like 2 years at least, since the beginning, as another mode afterwards. And anybody who keeps saying that is kind of just like, I don't even engage in discussion with them because they're all just like very like, hey, this is, you know, Rivals did this and Overwatch is desperate. I actually hate that term so much that I keep seeing online. But in any case, I think both games offer something completely different, and I think the honeymoon phase is actually starting to wear off for Rivals a little bit for a lot of people. I've seen some people, some of my peers say that as well. And yeah, let's move on with more Overwatch takes here. Next hot take, PvE missions were average at best and sometimes ruined by bad friendly AI, so it was good that PvE got scrapped. The skill trees and related extras being reworked into current and upcoming PvP is the better choice. I don't think it's a hot take. Well, obviously I do think the PvE missions were like a small like portion, like I would argue like a very small piece of what they actually did develop, and that was the only like shippable ready product that they could throw out to the people to at least say we did some missions and some PvE. But I just genuinely believe the gameplay loop of their ambitious PvE event was not good enough to retain people. It would definitely be like a one and done, and like that was it, and people would be, they probably weighed the option where like people would be more disappointed with how it eventually turned out versus just like, you know, giving like a little bit of what it could be. And I genuinely enjoyed those missions, especially the last one, like the Torbjorn turret one where you have to defend the thing. And I enjoyed it like beating a legendary one time, but I've never played it again. You can still queue up for it right now, believe it or not, but nobody does because it has no replayability. And I think it was smart and it was good that PvE got scrapped, and I agree. I actually thought the AI was okay. Like there's that like the monster design was actually kind of cool with like the little Widowmaker and the mechanic where you actually have to use certain abilities that interact with it. I actually did like Wrath of the Bride a little more, where like you have to use Ash's Coach Gun to stun this person and like use this mechanic to work with this boss mechanic. There was a lot of ifs, whats, and buts, but you know, I think PvE would have fallen flat if it was like marketed and hyped up to be this big thing and it turned out to be PvE missions, but more. The big one is that they should probably just continue the story, but hey. One thing to note about the skill trees and related extras, I'm sure there's like a mood board or like a big creative board where they like ideate a lot of ideas and all these talents. I think they've literally quoted the devs saying that like the stadium PvE talents were actually not a lot of them were from PvE. They were like newly conceptualized ideas and talents that they had to come up for the game itself. And I believe that, right? I'm sure if you like think Genji, they probably have like 100, 200 plus ideas of possible perks and power-ups that they could do for this hero, and they just like picked a few for the PvE missions back then. There's obviously some overlap, but like a lot of them had to be handpicked and curated for their new mode, and I can believe that. Next hot take, I really like this game, but ... Push is literally the least fun thing I played in a game. I could be having a good day, getting reasonable wins and losses, and then push comes up. It's not like I dislike the new modes because I actually really enjoy Clash. It's just push. The maps suck, the game mode sucks, everything about it sucks. It either needs a major overhaul or straight up removal. I know this isn't even a hot take either because almost no one likes the game mode. I've never once had fun playing push. Maybe if there was a system to avoid specific game modes, then things would be better. I'm so sick of push ruining my day or making it 10 times worse. I would say you have a different opinion. I think more people dislike Clash than push. And I feel like push is at a point where people kind of tolerate it. And it's like, they don't necessarily hate it, but they're just more excited to get the other modes. And I'm not sure if you guys resonate with what I'm saying here, where it's like, if I see Esperanza, I'm like, it's fine. If I see Colosseo, okay. If I see New Queen Street, I'm from Toronto, but like, that's my least favorite push map. Then I'm like, ugh, because I just hate the certain angles and choke points I have to play. I think the thing that like drags it and makes it feel like a drag is like the return of the bot going to the spot where like to go back to neutral. So like if a team pushes 50 meters and they finally lose the fight, you still have to spend 10 seconds to bring it back to the 0 point. And even if you like, if they kill you once and then you kill them the second time, you both have won one team fight each, but the team that won second is at like a way worse position because they had to spend time bringing the bot back to the center. So they'd probably only be at like 25 or 30 meters while the first team made it to 50 before that team can recontest and contest them at the 30 meter mark. And if the first team wins again, then they still hold the lead. And I think, you know, well, the argument of that is that, you know, the losing team or the team that won second should be able to push up and have like a strategic positional advantage. But the problem is that the push bot still needs somebody on it. So you can't fully set up. And even though the map is designed to be better for the team coming back, like think New Queen Street, right? You have the high ground coming downhill, looking down. You're supposed to have the advantage. But the team coming up will always have one person pushing on the payload, so the team coming up can never like be neutral or like retake that advantage back in a meaningful way in a lot of cases, which can make the mode feel kind of bad. So I actually think one of the suggestions, and I know I'm gonna bring up rivals, sorry, but this is a healthy thing. I actually think the objectives should move by themselves. I was actually like pretty astounded to see, like I kind of like the idea that they had there, and I kind of want to bring that to Overwatch, but at a very small rate. So the payload, the push robot moves very slow on its own. So if you want to make the choice to like take a strategic position where you bring all your heroes and your players up to hold a spot, at least you're getting some push, right? But it has to be like way worse or less efficient than bringing one person or 2 or 3 people, because I calculated it on Rivals on the other channel that the payload and it moves at a very slow speed by itself. It does cap out at 3, but one person is like the biggest bang for your buck at like a 66% increase in speed. Then it starts tapering down up to 3. But like in Overwatch, I think it's like one extra person is like 16%. Or one base speed is one person, an extra person is another 16%, and a third person is like 33%. In any case, that's one way to kind of make push maybe feel less bad. I'd have to see how it would play in person. It works in Rivals. Don't know, maybe it doesn't work as well in Overwatch, but hey, just throwing that out there. Hot take, ability bloat has been absurd for a while. Compare heroes that were in the game at launch, like Rein, Soldier, or Zen, to recently released heroes like Hazard, Venture, and Juno, and it's a big part of what made the game so broken and driven so many players away, or people away. Most, if not all, of the launch heroes are just straight up outclassed, and it feels like there's a much bigger emphasis on quantity of new heroes and gimmicks, rather than on improving the quality of the game overall. People would riot, but in my opinion, the game would be healthier overall, or at least easier to balance. A lot of the heroes have had their kit stripped down to the bare essentials. I kind of see where you're coming with ability bloat, but I disagree saying it's absurd, and I also disagree with saying some of the launch heroes are not viable, because they absolutely are viable. And I think the most simplest kit hero that came out in recent times was Illari, an absolutely bare bones kit. Shoot, heal, cooldown, ultimate. Like that is it. Lifeweaver had too many abilities and they had to simplify it a little bit, but Illari was a perfect example. And you actually saw the comments under Illari's release were like, that's it? Her kit is so boring, blah, 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 blah. But like, you know, your argument is that it's too much abilities versus, or ability bloat is too much, but when they try to actually go for a simpler kit, it didn't resonate too much with people at the time. I think Illari is pretty good right now, and I think perks kind of like increase the skill ceiling on her quite a bit, but like I do see where you're coming from with the more recent heroes like the Hazard, Venture, Junos. They do have a lot of interaction and cool things with the abilities, but I think that's fine. I think like even if you have more volume of abilities, as long as like each individual ability isn't overtuned in its own, I think having like interplay or having the abilities weave and combo with each other is actually a good thing. I think Venture was a great example of like a combination of like the burrow into the up into like the drill dash where you can use it defensively or offensively. I like the modern heroes. I actually think these last 3 heroes were bangers: Hazard, Venture, and Juno. The only thing is the other knob we had to turn, or the dial we had to dial back, was the individual numbers, but the interplay at its core of the abilities were actually fantastic. I think that's what we need in modern 2025 Overwatch. I think too many of these may be like, you know, you don't want anything too much in volume, right? Everything in moderation. So maybe we can weave in one of the more simpler heroes every now and then, but then also go more complex. But yeah, I disagree with the second part. I don't think all the launch heroes are outclassed at all. I think Ryan's okay. I think Winston is fantastic. I think Diva's fantastic. These are all launch heroes, right? And you can't say Winston's bad at all, because he isn't. They added one more thing to him with the secondary fire in Overwatch 2, but like, you know, who else is like has a pretty much base kit? Soldier 76, he's still okay-ish. Ana's pretty much a launch-ish hero, like pretty much in the first month or 2, right? Wasn't it July? Like 2 months after the game came out. Close enough to the early version of Overwatch, and many of them are still viable today. So yeah, no. Oh, hot take about perks. Perks aren't as good as people think they are for the game, because the addition of perks meant that heroes that didn't and might never receive any nerfs or buffs, leaving heroes like Widow and Sojourn in their unbalanced state. Well, technically some perks are like nerf or buffs in different aspects and facets of their game. And some of the perks who are for some of the more like quote unquote problematic heroes are also like scaled accordingly, hopefully. I think Sojourn's is a little bit of an outlier. I think public perception is that she's a little too strong with her perks. I don't think Widow's perks are actually that good. I haven't seen like any Widowmakers in my games recently, but like, who cares? Like they can still balance. They said for the beginning of season 15 that they didn't do any individual hero balancing, only perks released, because there's just too many variables and too many knobs. I love how I keep saying the word knobs to turn now. I don't know where I got this from, but you're gonna have to excuse me for saying knob. And I know all of like the British people are like knob, because knob means something completely different there. But anyways, I do think perks are good, and I think this is a pretty hot take. And I think in the mid-season, or at least next season, we're gonna both adjust not only the perks, tweak the perk numbers, change some perks, but then we can also have fine-tuning and balance of the heroes to receive nerfs or buffs. You're saying that some of these heroes may never receive nerfs or buffs, but like there's parts of the game where the hero won't have perks, right? Beginning of the game, or if you swap heroes, and I'm pretty sure Blizzard will tune accordingly. It's having perks doesn't mean we're never going to tweak individual neutral base kit numbers ever again, or base HP. It's just, we need time, and like they threw this whole system out at us, and like, you know, it's probably better to just not do any overreaction and be like, we think this perk is weak, so we're gonna buff, I don't know. Like what now that it's been out, people are saying like, you know, Sombra's perks are pretty bad, and I kind of agree. So it's not like they would retroactively start season 15 patch and then just like buff all of like Sombra's numbers, because they didn't know. They had no data. They only had internal play tests of perks of like a team of like 100 people versus throwing it out to your millions of players to literally give you real data and then iterate off that. So these heroes hopefully will not remain in their quote-unquote unbalanced state for much longer. Cold take, King's Row is a terrible map or mediocre at its best. It's the annoying heroes map such as Rhine, Mei, Junkrat, and Widow, but it used to be so good. So what changed? First of all, Rhine wasn't considered an annoying hero, but after shifting Rhine's power to his shield, with it being 1600 in the moment, I just don't like playing against him anymore. For Junk, he used to be a very bad hero, but now that he has more niche than bad, Widow is just Widow, Mei has always been annoying, and lastly, I don't know if it's just me, but the map feels so attacker advantageous. It's the only map where I don't care if they win the round with 3 minutes to spare. The last match I had on King's Row was 22 minutes or more. I just think that people still like it because they remember 3 years ago when they would be excited after getting it. I think people just enjoyed playing Rhine Zarya in Overwatch 1. It's one of those OG maps people have fond memories for. And I think I kind of agree that it's not as fun as it used to be, mostly because Rhine Zarya was a very simple and nostalgic hero composition to play with, like maybe Ana, Lucio, and any combination of DPSs. But I don't think it's terrible by design at all, and I don't think it's mediocre. It's still one of the better maps. In terms of old Overwatch 1 maps, my favorite is actually still Lijiang Tower in Nepal. Everything else is like whatever. But nothing has really changed other than the 5v5 format and not being able to play those certain like big Grav Dragon or like, you know, Rhine Zarya moments. And I think that's what people are missing ever since Overwatch 2. It just didn't hit the same. It was like the whole like Rhine mirror like thingy that people would do, and it would be like the agreement. But then over time, with the evolution of the game, so many different comps are viable on that map, which I think actually is better for the health of the game, where like many comps are viable. I actually think it's annoying when certain maps lead itself to like basically 1 or 2 tank picks because of the design. Like it feels like on Junkertown you really only have like 2 or 3 like solid tanks that can cover that much spacing. But King's Row, you can play Winston, you can play Rhine, you can even play Sigma, you can play Diva, you can play Ram, you can play Orisa. It feels like you have a lot of options. So like I say it's not mediocre, it's still great, it's just not as fun as it used to be for nostalgic purposes. But for like the future moving forward, it's one of the best when there's no like really obnoxious high grounds that nobody can reach. It's accessible, it's got pretty decent like pathing, the height or whatever is not bad, the elevation isn't bad, the chokes aren't too oppressive. Like, I still think it's a great map. Hot take, people don't hate Kiriko because of her consistent addition to her skin department, but it was because Blizzard focused on her only makes people feel like their time and effort in Overwatch is validated if they play these characters only. That's one way to look at it. I think it's less about people hating Kiriko, more about hating Blizzard, not to make them feel validated for playing it, but hating Blizzard for not releasing skins in like an equal distribution, because a lot of the heroes need some love that aren't getting the love that they need. But Blizzard is a company, they're like, Kiriko skins sell, we gotta print money, and that's just what they do. You would just hope that they would kind of like, you know, if they're going to release a Kiriko skin every goddamn season, at least throw some love at the ones that are like not getting any, because like you can't only look at your profits department, your profit margins and all that stuff. You have to keep your player base happy, and people like to make a lot of noise when they're not getting the skins for the heroes that do have an active player base, who do have people who dedicate their time playing a certain hero. Cough cough venture, and then you actually get, you know, a big eruption on socials being like, yo, Blizzard doesn't care about these other heroes, they just want money. And that's not gonna help your company either. So Blizzard, you just gotta make more skins for the other characters. But it's not necessarily a hate Kiriko specifically, they're just not liking the source. Blizzard's you know, overall administrative decision. A perk hot take, devs need to nerf the Sojourn 150 damage railgun perk. It is way too oppressive. It's a pretty good perk, I will say. That makes the overclock very, very lethal to win team fights. But I actually think both perks have been taken pretty equally. I think, you know, the Sojourn railgun perk makes it so like that ultimate is crazy good, and when you hear it, you have to run. But like the 15 extra ammo means she's a lot more brawly in the neutral outside of her ultimate. It means she has higher railgun frequency overall because she's building 100 charge way quicker with the extra ammo, which means she will build maybe a less powerful overclock more often, but it's up more. The frequency is up. Both are pretty good. In terms of nerfing it, I'm trying to think of the breakpoints right now. I think it's like 150 damage with the how much is the headshot multiplier? 1.5, 225 to the head. Yeah, is pretty rough, but you know, could be one of the nerfs you can go for. Maybe bring it down to like 125, 130 maybe, something like that. But they have the data in the back end. We'll have to see. All right, last hot take. Neither the Season 9 changes nor this Season 15 changes were significant enough to justify a rank reset. Everyone just ends up back where they started. Anyways, all it does is make people play god-awful matches for the first few weeks. True, rank resets definitely can affect the first couple of early matches, but I will say, like, I didn't actually get moved down that much. I think I finished Masters 2, and then I reset, and I was in Masters 4. So, like, nothing really shifted for me personally, so, like, I only have that experience to kind of go off of. But, like, I do think the Season 9 changes were enough. A big HP breakpoint change and projectile size change and a fundamental change on, like, how you approach the game, taking natural cover, I do think it warranted a reset. And it's been a year, and I think a yearly reset's okay. Every single live service game does it after every year. But you know, a lot of them do them seasonally, every like 2-3 weeks, or sorry, every season, every 2 months or 3 months. But it's a marketing scheme to make people grind again, because if not, then some people don't feel like they ever want to grind because they can just AFK their rank forever. No decay. And I think there's enough changes with the perks that like it's fine to have a new reset here and there, and it helps like fix the distribution. There's a little bit of pushback, and they added the champion rank. They said this season they're trying to add more people into champion by flattening out the curve, so I think you're going to gain a little bit more SR, or whatever they call it in this game, points for the middle to higher ranks and the masters and the grandmaster, because back then like there's only like 10 or 20 champions per season, which means all the high level players are sitting in GM1 to GM5. Pretty big range, but I think that they're gaining and losing equal amounts, or maybe they're gaining less and losing more, so it's very hard to get into the higher echelon. So the rank reset gives them another way to kind of flatten and push it out a little bit, to kind of like smooth out the outliers, you know what I mean? But yeah, all right, that's it for the Overwatch takes this week, and that's it for this week's hot takes. Leave some more in the comments. See you guys next week. Peace.